You ready?
Let's get it.
All right. Here's theme music. Yeah, yeah, it's coming in. Feel it?
Yeah, I feel
Can you feel it? Can you feel it, Mr.
it.
Krabs?
I don't hear anything.
Well, what you would hear is our theme music because we are back.
The boys in the pod are
We are
back.
so back. Cheers, buddy. It feels
Clank,
like
clank.
home, even though we're in our new digs. I'm in my super messy new office space. Scott is in a new abode since the
I'm in
last time we did the
a
podcast.
nice basement level dwelling.
Yeah, we call that garden level. That's how you keep the property values high.
Garden level. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, cheers, Scooty. It's good to have you back. We are back with the Other League podcast. I know we took a couple week hiatus. We just wanted to see how the season was going to play out a little bit before we started jumping into takes.
We wanted to build the suspension. We wanted to keep you guys waiting.
Build the suspension or the suspense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, because it's going to be a rocky road team. We are knocking some rust
There you
off.
go.
That's why you need the suspension. That's why Scott wanted to build it. Today, we're going to start off by talking about the standings. We're going to talk about the heated East West battle and how it's shaping up after 2 weeks. We're going to look at those power rankings and see how they might have flipped since the draft. We're going to check in on some of our keepers from that draft and see how they're scoring, how they're doing, and if they were worth it. And then we're going to talk about some big injuries that we've seen already this year. RIP Joe Burrow. Going to be tough without Joey B in this season. We're going to look at the Fab report, talk about some of the biggest bidding battles, as well as some overspends that we've already seen. And then we're going to do a quick talk about the trade block because we have had one successful trade and several unsuccessful trade attempts from one member of our league in particular. And then we're going to finish up with a week 3 preview and a reminder about our Sunday Fun Day parlays. So without further ado, let's get into the current standings. Looking at the East-West battle, at the top of the East, we have two 2-0 teams. We have Dragon D's footballs and McBribe our way to the finals. That's Alex Dragon and Wesley Fall sitting at 2-0. And then 500 teams, we have Sweet Mahomes, Alabama, and Nick Gravely with the TD Feelers, 1-1. And then bringing up the caboose in the East, Laporte Authority, Gavin, bringing it down to 0-2 to start, but can always bounce back. Over in the West, you've got your very own Toph's Tankers, named for a guy who doesn't play on that team anymore, Tank Bigsby, 2-0, currently undefeated. Yeah, you didn't know that was what the team was named for?
I thought you just drafted so poorly that you were tanking for next year.
Scott, it's a multi-year rebuild. It's not a tank season. It's a multi-year rebuild.
Right.
You guys just don't see the vision. I said this in the draft. Hot on my heels, we have Bauer Power at 1-1. We also have Christopher Glennon, Just Win Baby, sitting at 1-1. And then 2 0-2 teams, Pat Dragon and Alex Orbeck bringing up the rear in the West. Scott, interesting thing about the standings, and I'm curious what you think about the power rankings too. Looking at the sheet here that has me at the top of the West, 2-0, undefeated, hot start. My playoff percentage is still lower than yours, even though you're 1-1. You're sitting at 53%. I'm sitting at 49%. So the ESPN thinks you have a better shot than I do.
I would agree with ESPN, and this is not no shade there. I think that number one, my keeper value was I went through and listed everybody's as I was getting ready for this. My first keeper wasn't until like the 8th round, 7th or 8th round, I think. So I had a lot of good keeper value. Whereas you took your top two quarterbacks in the 2nd and the 4th, and we could talk about this later, but neither one of them were like super notable. Dak's like okay, but so I still think I would agree with that. It took AJ Brown to have a dud of a week last week. Was a lot of momentum killer, no doubt about it. To come out projected first and then lose the first one off of a dud. But yeah, I mean, you're still at 49%. I'm at 53%, so nothing significant, nothing that like a 2 or 3 week run one way or the other, good for you, bad for me, could greatly alter. I think one thing to note about is, and that's probably fair this early in the season, is just the parity. Obviously, the East is outdoing the West right now with only one 0-2 team, the Port Authority, and with us having, or the West Coast having two 0-2 teams and Nico team kills and Rage Against the A Chain. But ultimately, I like there's nothing like super, super crazy. But again, we're 2 games into it. So I guess that's probably to be expected.
Yep. I think that's absolutely right. It's going to be a long season. I wasn't planning on contending, but if I'm starting off 2-0, I will take it. Last season, I started off in a big hole, so this is a nice change of pace for me. So I'm curious to see what you think you are seeing looking at the power rankings, specifically from ESPN, and how those might have changed since draft day.
That's fun to see, like just the drastic change in 2 weeks. For instance, you're going from 10 to the 4 spot. Like you went from 10th place after the draft, now to be in the 4 spot in the power rankings. I only dropped from first to third. I mean, again, losing a game to be suspected. Orb, who I thought it was, I thought between the two of us, we probably had the best draft and ended up in the best position, has dropped to eighth with his 0-2 spot. And then Pat Dragon, again, great keeper value, great looking drafting team, dropped from second or dropped from third to nine. So it's very interesting to see how top heavy at the top heavy or top third, I guess, really, how far we've all dropped mainly, not mainly, but really looking at Pat and Orb. And then there's some other jumps that are notable after that. Alex Dragon, Baby Dragon, 7-1. That's significant. I mean, the people are liking what he's done. And then I'd be remiss to not to acknowledge Toast Tankers going from 10 to 4. So and it's just fun. I know it's small sample size right now, and this kind of stuff is going to happen. But it's the notable jumps are very fun to look at.
Yeah. The biggest swing that you mentioned there that will lead us right into talking about our keeper check-in is Baby Dragon. Alex Dragon with some keeper value that's really showing up for him early in the season. He had two receivers that he kept, one of them being Malik Neighbors in the first round, and then the second one being Puka Nacua, who, if you remember right, was a free agent pickup back in the day. And he was able to pick up Nacua as a keeper in the 7th round this year. That is the number 1 and number 2 wide receiver in fantasy so far after 2 weeks. You've got Puka Nacua, a 7th round keeper with 50 fantasy points already.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Malik Neighbors is the one that I highlighted on this, actually, just as a round 1 keeper in the league and in the format that we had. I think those are the only 2 people that he actually kept. So it's a bit of a gamble.
And not entirely by choice. He kept them kicking and screaming, if I remember correctly.
From the group text. That's accurate.
Yeah. So you're welcome, Alex Dragon. You're welcome, Baby Dragon. I was looking out for you.
Yeah. But Malik Neighbors round 1 was, it's like keeping a kicker round 10. You got to kind of,
you got to have the vision.
You got to do one of those about it. But I think it's fair to say both of those have probably paid off. And so maybe, some of the traditional thinking isn't really as traditional as it should be. Yeah. But I would say again, though, like just keeping the wide receiver round 1 and not having any other round receivers or quarterbacks, as a keeper for the rest of the draft was a wild move.
It's working out for him so far, and I don't think any of us thought Russell Wilson would actually be as good as he has been in New York to start the year. I think we were all on the Jackson Dart train, especially 50-50. Especially looking at the long-term value of a Jackson Dart, assuming he would take over that role. Yeah. Before we get to, I will take a victory lap on Brandon Aubrey here very shortly. I would love to do that. But before I do that, I have one noted keeper, really good value, smart take by Wesley Fall, no less. In the 10th round, Wesley Fall kept Baker Mayfield, and that has ended up being very, very fun to watch. Baker's hard not to root for. I love watching him in the games. I don't get to watch as many games as I probably should as a commissioner of a dynasty fantasy league, but when I do, it's hard to look away from Baker. He is so tough, so fun. And as a 10th round keeper, he's already putting up quarterback 7 numbers. So top 10 quarterback in a super flex league, tons of value. Some are saying he might be a even slightly better keeper than another 10th rounder, Brandon Aubrey. Let's all give it up for my Dallas Cowboys keeper, Brandon Aubrey, who I was lambasted for in this group for keeping in the 10th, who has actually scored more fantasy points than the following names. He has scored more than Bucky Irving, Kyler Murray, Garrett Wilson, and Derrick Henry. So how's that for a 10th round keeper? That is called positional advantage, boys. You just don't have the vision.
Well, okay, tough. I agree. Here's the thing. I agree with it. When I was going back and doing this, and I was like looking at who's drafted 11th, 12th, and 13th. That's a good time to take risk and try to see if you can get a keeper for the next year and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, is this a good call to keep the best kicker in the league, at least from long distance, who's going to get you 50, 60 bangers consistently?
Can I let you into the thought process? Peel back the curtain on Toast Tankers HQ here. So
hardly ever do I ever want to know what's happening in your brain. This might be one of those times.
This is one of the rare occurrences. Yeah. So I knew this year I wasn't going to be able to keep Amon-Ra St. Brown. We as a franchise are moving on from a receiver who was a cornerstone of our team for multiple seasons. Yes, formerly the St. Brown in the Broken Zones, pre-rebranding from the PR department. Yep. And now that we are Toast Tankers, we had to embrace a multi-year rebuild plan. And part of that was, all right, that means every draft spot after the free agent round has a lot of value if one of those hits. So my thought was, let's go ahead and take positional advantage at kicker and defense. Didn't work well on the defensive front with Denver last week, but let's take positional advantage because I know I'm not going to keep a kicker in the 8th because odds are I'll have a free agent or someone who was drafted in the 10th by the end of the year. And let's just fill our bench with rookies and people who I think will take starting roles by the end of the year, looking into 2026.
I had a similar because I think we took defenses in the same.
They weren't far off. Yeah, someone else. Yeah, you were on that train too.
I was in a similar vein, knowing that because my keepers were 7, 8, 9, I think, and 10. So I was like, let me get a defense now, and then, like you said, try to fill in those back 10 or 11, 12, 13, 14 with somebody that possibly could be a keeper looking forward.
Yep. This league values the dart throw, and especially if one of those dart throws lands, because either they take a starting role because they're the better talent that's younger coming into it, just needed some time to warm up after the draft, or just like the segment we're going into now, there might have been a big injury on the roster in front of them. Notable injuries that we've seen so far this season. I mean, the biggest one's got to be Joe Burrow. Yeah. Joe Burrow affecting not just the quarterback position because he was drafted as a top 5 quarterback, but also because it affects one of the most potent offenses that we all have players involved in.
Yeah. And much like you were the beneficiary of AJ Brown dropping a nothing bugger in week 1, I was the beneficiary of that playing Rage Against the A-Chains last week, and so certainly made me breathe a little bit easier. But Orb's got to figure something out now moving forward. I think in the league that we're in, and losing a quarterback who let's look at the draft recap. I imagine that he had to have taken him pretty early on. Losing a Joe Burrow is significant. You can't because of how many quarterbacks are off the board. You don't just go and find a replacement off the waiver wire for a quarterback of that, especially of that stature.
Alex Orbeck looking to replace his 2nd round pick. He drafted at the turn, if you remember right. He had the 10 spot.
Yeah.
So drafted at the turn and drafted CeeDee Lamb, shortly followed by Joe Burrow at that turn. So looking to replace a round 2 draft pick.
Yeah, that's tough. That's actually, I texted Orb, was messing with him. I was like, what are you going to do? Wide receiver quarterback at the turn in your first 2? He's like, no, I would never do that in the match.
He actually did
it. Yeah. That is that's notable and significant. There's no doubt about it.
A big NFL injury, not so much for fantasy because I don't think any of us were heavily invested in this backfield, but Austin Eckler out for the season. And I would not be surprised if that might be the last we see of Austin Eckler. It would take a Herculean effort for someone our age my age, to come back and play in the NFL after so many seasons of just taking a beating the way he has.
Yeah, for no reason, he's a guy that you like to root for. I know nothing about Austin Eckler, but I like to root for him.
So I consume a lot of fantasy content, and every podcast, every fantasy show, they all say that Austin Eckler is one of those guys who embraced fantasy early, whereas a lot of NFL players hated the fantasy community because they didn't like the way that they were being talked about online, or it seemed like a lot of extra pressure and people weren't paying attention to the actual games. Austin Eckler would go on fantasy shows. He would go on different podcasts. and he was an investor in Matthew Berry's fantasy life, fantasy company. He saw it as a great way to build fans for the individual as opposed to the team. And so, wishing the best for Austin Eckler. Tough to see, but now it's going to be a Bill Krosky Merritt time in that backfield.
Yeah, and I think he had a little momentum anyways. There really wasn't Xavier Worthy. There wasn't anything much more notable outside of that, right? Khalil Mack on the defense.
Two more quarterbacks. Nick Gravely, our newcomer to the league, did lose Justin Fields, who was a promising quarterback in this league. Finally putting it together with that rushing upside would have been really cool to see. And then another one is JJ McCarthy. I actually pulled a JJ McCarthy card here recently. Might as well just send that one to the wood chipper.
Well, I thought we were talking about notable.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I had high hopes for JJ. I'm invested in him in some other leagues. So,
this is the other league.
Really, first podcast, we had to do it. We need a soundboard so we can actually lay into that. That would be if anyone wants to purchase us a soundboard for the podcast, we'll do it more than every 3 weeks. All right, Scott, let's get into the Fab report. Let's talk about our waiver wire and how people have been spending so far. First things first, I'm going to talk about the most expensive player that we've seen so far in the league. It was our week 1 of waivers. We saw the trade of Tank Bigsby, my team's namesake. Tank Bigsby gets traded, which clears up the backfield situation in Jacksonville. And Travis Etienne was available. So I put in a heavy bid. I ended up getting Travis Etienne for $49 out of our $100 Fab budget. So I wouldn't call it a full empty the clip, but it was pretty dang close. And it was enough to beat out Wesley Fall, who submitted a $31 offer in week 1 for Travis Etienne.
Yeah, and I think this was a reminder for me. I needed a wake-up call personally, and this was the wake-up call for how you have to absolutely treat the waiver wire. I think within the first 4 or 5 weeks, and I think we talked about this last year, it's worth it to empty your clip. Once you figure out what the chart's going to look like, once you figure out the first 2 or 3 whatever big injuries, and then once you see the way where you have a clear path for a starting player, especially a player that's going to get you points, and a player wide receivers can ebb and flow kind of like that, but you feel like a running back who has RB1 potential and is going to be the RB1 on that team is worth emptying the clip on. And I put in a $7 offer and then saw the 49. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Actually, that is a $49 player. There's no doubt about it. You got a guy that's going to get starting reps and a guy that's going to continue to get look after look after look. And there's really no competition behind him. I no qualms with what you did. You talked about emptying half of your clip on it. I think you did the right move.
Can I tell you? So my thought process behind that, and keep in mind, so week 1, they did play the Carolina Panthers, so a terrible defense. He put up 18.6. The following week in an away game in Cincinnati, after I added him to my roster and started him on the spot over a higher projected Tony Pollard, he puts up 16.9. So he's already sitting as a top 10 running back in the league so far after 2 weeks. I feel like I'm getting my value. And part of the reason I felt comfortable kind of going over that $40 barrier for me mentally was it's not really just keeper value. It was keeper value if this actually sticks. He is on the last year of a contract, so I'm not sure if it's going to stick for him or not. But it's clarity in the backfield. You don't get a lot of bell cow running backs. You know he's going to get the volume. And the sooner I acquire him, the more value return on investment I'm going to get week after week after week. Yeah. Emptying the clip on a player in week 8 doesn't give me the same value as emptying the clip on a player in week 2.
Yeah, 100. I mean, 100%. By week 8, week 10, whatever it may be, you're kind of either this way or that way. You're probably going to make the playoffs, or probably not going to make the playoffs, right? So if you do it this early and you have a guy that you can put in there and continuously trust that he's going to continue to get you points, there's no doubt about it. And that's just, again, that's the other. We have the super flex or whatever, and we've got the where you have to spend the money on the draft or on the waiver wire. And so that's the other strategy that in this league you truly have to take into account for.
Yep. And Reminder to everyone, it's competitive out there. You got to be active on the waiver wire. That's how you win your championship. That's how Alex
Go ahead.
Dragon
Yeah.
made it into his championship run by getting Puka Nakua on a $1 bid. You know,
Yeah.
you just got to throw your lines out there. You got to be willing to spin too. But that is going to lead to a few overspins, which I can talk about. One repeat offender on the overspins if you want to throw him under the bus.
Well, yeah, that's fine, but I'm also going to be throwing myself under the bus to a degree if who I'm thinking you're gonna about to segue to.
Yeah. So one thing to note. So one of the first bids that we had in week one, we did have Tucker Craft going for $15. And that's only two reasons why it's notable. One, Tucker Craft has been a rock solid tight end, and tight end has been a bit of a wasteland this year, especially due to the George Kittle injury, which we can talk about when we get to the trade block. But that was Pat Dragon spending $15 on a tight end. No other bids were competing with that. Roma Dunze on that list as well. Pat Dragon gets Roma Dunze after week one for $37 in an uncontested bid, and then continues to drop Rome Odunze onto waivers, which led to him then being picked up in the next waiver report by Laporte Authority, by Gavin, for $35 with lots of competing bids because he repeated as an amazing wide receiver for Chicago. He's already got 47.5 fantasy points, but more than his fantasy points, he has been racking up fab dollars in this league.
Yeah, that and part of I liked Roman Denze. Obviously I drafted him, and we talked about this earlier. My mindset was like, okay, I got to go get a second defense because I didn't like the matchup. So I dropped him with the mindset I'm just going to pick him up again. Has a massive week, and then he gets a lot of money dropped on him, and then gets dropped again, and then gets picked up again. But I think, at this point, it's hard to argue that he's probably worth what he's getting spent on right now. I would be shocked. I would truly be shocked. Something would have to happen. Number 4 position rank. I think something would have to happen for him to see the waiver wire again at this point in time.
So far, it makes me feel good about my Caleb Williams keeper in the 4th round, that he's got that connection with Rome, and he seems to be scoring points. He's putting up top 10 to 15 QB numbers consistently in both weeks, so I'm fine with that. And I'm excited for this upcoming week because week 3 of the game I will be watching. I'll tease to it because we'll do a week 3 preview, but I happen to have 2 quarterbacks going back and forth in one game that I get to watch on Sunday afternoon. Oh. I've already cleared my schedule. Michaela's already approved it.
That's the best when you can just wish for offense and
yes, dude, hammer the and it helps that the over under in that game is also huge. So I just feel good. I'm gonna have my I'm probably gonna make my Canes run, get my chicken fingers, and just sit there and just bask in the glory that is just hella offense with no defense.
You do love a Canes run.
I do love a Canes run.
Football Sunday. What I don't want to overlook, though, and I think it's very worth noting, is this Tucker Craft pickup.
It's solid. We didn't talk about it in the pre-show rundown, but
I know.
But yeah, Tucker Craft is a great pickup by Pat.
You got a tight end 1 right now, currently tight end 1, picked up off the waiver wires. I mean, that's a guy. That's this year's version of my Brock Bowers last year. I mean, that's the kind of pickup right now. Assuming that you're going to continue to have that. I think that Jordan Love and the Green Bay offense has a lot of weapons that they could continue to spread it around with. But if you watch the game this past weekend, like, he was the offense. I mean, they were targeting and he got the ball. So, I mean, I think right now there's no doubt about it that this is a dynasty type player that Pat just picked up for $15.
Yeah, not bad at all. And relevant because we can go ahead and talk about some trades that have gone through in this league. Pat was also a participant in the first trade of the year. We got one accepted. It went through. George Kittle for Jalen Waddle. So,
which I still veto.
Just in general, as soon as all right. So Scott, I'll give you the chance. So now it's time to talk about trades in this league.
Yeah.
Just immediate veto every time that you get the chance to. George Kittle for Jalen Waddle. Pat made this trade after Kittle was already injured and we knew he was going to be out for multiple weeks.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, great job by Pat to get something out of a guy that's going to be out for 4 weeks.
Keep in mind, we do have an IR spot in this league. We have a short bench. It's a super flex league with a short bench. So there's always good stuff on the waiver wire for the most part, but we do have an IR spot. So if you have top tier talent and you can afford to wait it out, that is a useful use of the IR slot on our bench.
And Pat was able to trade from a position of strength at this point in time, right? Because he had just picked up Tucker Kraft.
Tucker Kraft, exactly.
Yeah,
It
so
was
like
a really savvy move on his part.
it made it, and I loathe to give Pat compliments, but it makes a lot of sense. And what he did was good GMing, getting rid of George Kittle to get some talent back and feel. I haven't looked at his roster, but it's seemingly a position of need for him. Jalen Waddle, I don't super trust for no reason other than I just don't trust him. I don't, but I think he's going to get numbers for him for sure. So I think it was a savvy move though, hauling off of Pat.
Yep. And then so the other participant in this trade, Alex Orbeck, sitting pretty wide receiver heavy. He had CeeDee Lamb, Debo, Brian Thomas Jr., Calvin Ridley. And then we actually saw him participate in another trade. So we've had two accepted. Alex Orbeck traded Kenneth Walker III for Keon Coleman. So he also added to his wide receiver depth there by trading away Kenneth Walker. So two trades with Alex Orbeck, super active on those trade proposals. This one was with Wesley Fall, who is pretty notorious in this league. For those of you that haven't dealt with him, pretty notorious for he's going to throw a line out there. He's going to see what the value is.
Real quick, without looking it up, what round was Debo drafted?
What round was Debo drafted? I'm going to say Debo was drafted in the 12th in our league.
You're not that okay. You're not that bad. Round 14.
Wow. Yeah. So flipping some value there.
What's his position rate without looking?
Oh gosh. I'm going to say Debo is wide receiver 35.
8.
Oh, dude, I have not been paying attention.
Yeah, I have Debo in the other league. Blah, blah, blah.
This is the other league.
Yeah. I got him in another league right now too. So I'm like greatly riding Debo's like success right now. When I was looking through in our recap earlier, or prep work earlier, I was looking through. I saw the 14th round. And I remember like wanting to get Debo at that point in time. That was just great draft, great pick by Rage against the A-Chain there. And I just thought it was worth noting before we moved on.
Yeah, that is notable. Debo is one of those players that's definitely a blind spot for me. You know how you have those players that like they're good, but you just never have had them on your team. You don't pay attention to their games. For me, in years past, it was also another Alex Orbeck favorite. It was Keenan Allen. He was a big Keenan Allen guy, and I just never really paid attention to Keenan Allen until he's dropping 30s.
Yeah, what was it? What was this big? Was it two years ago, right? Because last year Keenan Allen was with the Bears. 2 years ago, when he was still with the Chargers, I picked him up, and he finished the second half of the season as wide receiver 1, and I rode him all the way to the playoffs. I thought he might help me win it, but yeah, Keenan Allen, big player. I'm a big Keenan Allen guy who's also this year having a sneaky good year.
Yeah. Before we get off the trade block, one thing I have to throw out there. We'll wrap this up by saying Wesley Fall is a man with the cojones to make multiple trade offers involving Isaiah Pacheco, dangled Isaiah Pacheco out in front of me and Alex Orbeck for various players and packages. And very quickly, the next morning, we all realized, oh no, he dropped Isaiah Pacheco after waivers ran. Like, this is a player he had no intention of keeping. So pretty transparent GM tactic from Wesley Fall. Just remember, anything Wesley Fall sends you, it's a starting point. Feel free to counter offer.
Shoot or shoot, right?
He shoots a shot. He shoots a shot. I respect it.
Yeah. Speaking of starting points, can we talk about the disgusting trade offer that you sent me?
It didn't look too bad on the ESPN app based on the numbers.
Yeah, on the current numbers. AJ Brown for Courtland Sutton.
I just wasn't sure if you were really he's had such a bad start, terrible start. And all the comments, it looks like they're going to keep running the ball. They might not be a passing offense. I'm just saying, if you wanted someone to take him off your hands, I'd be willing to do it.
Anytime I get a 1-for-1, this like same position for same position, it's a question mark. If there is not some kind I love a stack. I like having a quarterback that throws to his favorite wide receiver.
Yeah,
I'll go out of my way to trade for that. But if there's not some kind of motivating factor outside of that, I'm probably a nah. You know what I mean? Like I'm probably not doing it.
We got to get a little bit more creative. We're going to send you something.
Yeah. When I get hey, can I take this guy off your hands? Like, no way.
Oh, you didn't like the way I phrased that? Right.
Yeah. Immediately I was like, without even looking at the numbers, Like if it wasn't even like whatever, but I was like, no shot. AJ Brown is, I think, is still a top 8 wide receiver, top 7 wide receiver, and I've had Devonta Smith for the past several years, so I know the guy gets targets. AJ Brown he is the number one. He's like top tier up here, and then there's tiers way below him
Yep.
for receptions, and so yeah. I will one trade that I actually stewed on that I got. If we could be transparent, I don't know if that's okay with everybody or not.
Sure. We got a few minutes left, so let's
also
keep it.
we'll run with it. Well, I got a Kyron Williams for Brock Bowers, and like face value, I was like, no shot. But then I kind of looked at it, and I actually had to like sit there and kind of think about it.
Double
It's
take.
my namesake. Yeah, like both of them have really good keeper value and whatnot. So yeah.
All right. Let's wrap this up with a quick week 3 preview. Scott, do you have a matchup that you are looking forward to in week 3 as we start to see some of these 2-0 teams maybe facing some 0-2 teams, and maybe we get some more parity in the East and the West?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that jumps off the board right now for me as my screen loads is dragging these footballs, which is 2-0 against our 2-0 Wesley Fall, and brought our way to the finals. So we have a fun little East Coast matchup. Both are projected 137.5 for Baby Dragon, 134.5 for Wesley Fall. This is going to be a fun one. Like, not only do you
That's
have
high scoring. That's very high scoring.
Right. Not only do you have two 2-0 teams, but you have two 2-0 teams that are projected for 130 plus. And so I think that's the first one that kind of jumps off the papers for me.
Yeah. And then for me, we have a battle in the Wild West here between Christopher Glennon and Alex Orbeck. I want to see if Alex Orbeck's trade moves have benefited him to where he can get off the schneid and get a win here. And both these teams will come out 1-2 in the West.
Next looking at it is Nicotine Kills, the 0-2 Pat Dragon, representing our West Coast division against Sweet Mahomes, Alabama, our 1-1 Corey Eller. 129.5 for Corey, 123.4 for Nicotine Kills. Feels like we kind of know what's going to happen here. It feels like Pat Dragon might be staring down the barrel of an 0-3 start. Tough look, but I mean, when you have Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, you got to like your odds.
Yep. That's not bad at all. Speaking of liking odds, I think I like your odds against our newcomer Nick Gravely this week. We got Bauer Power facing the TD Feelers. You're projected at 132, and Nick's team projected at 129. You just got to make sure Josh Allen doesn't take over that game on Thursday Night Football. You got to hope it's more of a James Cook game, and then I think you've got the win there.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, I'm a projection slut. So I kind of going up until Thursday, I like my numbers just to look better. It makes me feel better when I go to bed at night. So there might be some tweaks that happen. I actually don't think there's going to be this week because I've got a quarterback sitting that I don't have a second quarterback right now. But yeah, looking at our last matchup of the week, we got Tough Tankers 2-0 leading the West Coast somehow, some way, just pure grit against the
West Coast, Best Coast, baby.
Yeah, against the East Coast LaPorte Authority. I think we all know what we all want to happen here, and it's an absolute routing. I think we all are rooting for LaPorte Authority right now to just take over Toast Tankers and just end the Cinderella story right now. Again, you got to kind of like what Gavin's throwing out there with Jahmyr Gibbs and Justin Jefferson, Rome Dunze. He jumped his load on. Sammy Laporta is always a weapon. So I think that this is truly one, though, that could go either way. And I think we have a fun, exciting slate ahead of us this weekend. And it's going to be interesting to see where we're at this time next week.
Yep. Guys, don't forget to submit your Sunday Fun Day parlay bets in the group chat. I'm going to place them this week. I know I haven't yet so far, but hey, we're 2 weeks in. We have knowledge now. We can beat Vegas. Let's do it. Let's get ourselves a destination draft paid for the boys. If anyone needs me this Sunday at 2:25 Mountain Time, I'll be watching Caleb Williams and Dak Prescott in a 50+ point shootout. Scott, any parting messages for the boys before we call it a night?
Just, hey, fellas, sorry it took so long. The guys have been busy. Just give us a little wiggle room right now. But
a little grace. Give us a little grace.
Well, we enjoy doing this, and we hope you guys enjoy it. And let's go. Let's have some fun this weekend.
All right. We love you all. We'll see you Sunday. Best of luck, except to everyone we're playing. Peace out.
Peace.